All right, so we're back here, and we're joined by Alex Kolominski with the Skyworks Group at Balboa Real Estate. And this time, Alex is joining from his new office. Alex, you want to tell us about your new office?
Yeah, what's going on, guys? Hunter, thanks for having me. I've been working from home for the past 3 years, and I'm very excited to have moved into my new little office. And Me and Hunter were talking about productivity and if things are better working from an office versus working from home. And so I'd say to you guys, it certainly helps working from an office. So long as you are not fully distracted. So for me right now, it's very private. There's only myself and another person in here. And I'm putting in, 10, 12 hours of just straight work. And it's nice, compared to working from home. I'm way more productive here.
And that, of course, depends on the agent's preference. I mean, a lot of agents I talk to, or agents before they join Balboa and they call in and they're learning about the company, they tell me they're working from home anyway. So here's the thing. An office at this point is obsolete. I mean, I'll make that case to anyone. I'll make it to a traditional real estate company like Keller Williams. The idea, and I guess I should clarify, the idea of a group or community office like it used to be, where all the agents go in there and drink coffee and hang out and print stuff out and whatever. I mean, I think that that's truly obsolete. An office now, it should be more specialized, where you have a team leader. I mean, we've had agents that have had teams in several different counties that have opened an office, a small office for their group, because they're a specific team. They each have their own task. And, one will work with buyers. There'll be a team lead like yourself. But that of course is an environment for a very specific small group of people, as opposed to just going into an office. I mean, I've peeked in other real estate offices recently, like the larger companies. There's not much going on. I mean, there's
Yeah.
like one person on Amazon on a computer and another person shooting the breeze with someone else. I mean, they're not high productivity environments. And with everything being online now, I mean, you don't need an office. An office is more like you're creating an environment. It's an environment to it's an environment to focus on a specific task. That's just my thought on it.
Yeah. But I'd like to add though, so if so every agent is in the real estate business for different purposes. I've noticed. So if your purpose is to turn it into a bigger business and expand and have a team, like what I'm trying to do, having a small space for the team is helpful. Maybe not for the purpose of just meeting up here and drinking coffee and kicking back, but more so just as a hub that we can come to, meet, think out loud, talk, motivate each other, review our deals, and just kind of like for training purposes once in a while. That's kind of the purpose for me, because it's a lot harder to do that from home, running a team where you don't have a place to even meet at all, not even once. So that's just my thoughts.
No, that's an important distinction. That I think that's an important distinction, and I agree. There's definitely a need for an office for what you just described. So some of the things I want to talk about today are protecting an agent's interest, because I get so many of those heartbreaking phone calls from agents where something has gone wrong because they may have hastily written up an offer or hastily showed a property to someone, and that person may have gone around that agent or written up a new offer with a new agent that'll offer that, a kickback. I mean, there's a common scenario that exists in the industry where you have a buyer's agent that shows properties to a buyer, and then the buyer writes an offer with another agent. And in the history of the company, we've had more than one case where a buyer has asked for a kickback or a rebate, and when the agent said no, that buyer just said, okay, I'll write an offer for the same property with a new agent that will give me a kickback. And that doesn't end well for the buyer or their agent, because there's a very clear procuring cause claim. But there's ways to protect yourself. And there's one specific form, by the way, that I highly recommend, because, and I've talked about this so many times, but since it's a recurring problem, I realize there's no way I can talk about it too much. But it's the property showing. It's just called the property showing agreement, and it's a single page PDF that I created for Balboa. And as opposed to a buyer representation agreement, which looks like, I mean, it's a very intimidating document. It's several pages long of fine print in legalese language. And it's a real turnoff to meet a buyer, have really good energy, build momentum, feel like you're going to go show properties, getting them excited about their new home, their new purchase, and then say, by the way, here's this massive prenup that you're going to stick right in front of them. And it's a lot. I mean, it's a hurdle. I mean, many agents can get it signed, but there's plenty of agents that don't. And this property showing agreement is for agents that don't. Do you want to add something?
Well, yeah, I'm familiar with the form you created, and I thought it was super helpful at the time when you created it. My thoughts were always like, it's the ideal situation if you can protect your interest. It's the ideal situation if you have a cooperating buyer that's respectful enough to sign that form, and that way you can at least guarantee that if they do want to decide to buy a house, you show that you're going to get paid. It's all ideal, but you did mention in an email that we as realtors, we work on speculation. And I think I agree. And I like that a lot because it applies to my situation perfectly. So I just like you, I do encourage, like, if you can get that document signed, get that Balboa form signed to protect yourself. But in my opinion, it's the way I personally do business, and I think a lot of agents can relate to that too, possibly, is that I just try to be and provide as much value as I can as a person, to be as likable as I can and as valuable as I can, enough for me to lock that relationship without a signature. It's verbally there. It's just morally there. Like, if you don't use me, I'll sleep at night, but you won't, type of thing, to be quite honest. So that's kind of how I've been doing business. It's just like, work so hard, be so diligent, on point, that they want to work with you. They don't want to work with anyone else. So I didn't get a chance to use that form, but at some cases at some cases I will. It just depends on the client. I don't know if that makes sense. If you have a client that you're worried about, you just get a feel that maybe there's something weird about it. Let's lock it up. Let's see if they're willing to sign the form. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, look, everyone has their own style, and, licensees are independent contractors. Each licensee, they're operating their own business. So at the end of the day, they can operate their business, whatever works best for them, whatever they feel is their personal style. Balboa, and what I do basically at the headquarters, as I call it, is just kind of create the framework in which agents can operate. And I offer a lot of leniency and freedom for agents to do whatever they want in terms of, as long as it's compliant. But so I worked for years. I worked on a buyer's agent team where I just went through tons and tons of buyer leads. And buyers they can go astray. I mean, in the past, what I would typically do is have them sign it. I'd always bring this form on a clipboard to a showing. And that was just my personal thing, because I just knew, how easy it was to get burned, and I'd gotten burned a few times. So I thought, just to be on the safe side, I want to document everything. And the property showing agreement. So just to kind of make a distinction between the buyer representation agreement and the property showing agreement, the property showing agreement that we created is one page as opposed to several. It's in very plain English as opposed to kind of legal jargon. And it basically says, look, you're not obligated to use me as your agent. Okay. But on this particular property, this one that I'm spending my time, my resources going to open up and show to you, I want to be your agent. I'm going to be your agent if you write an offer just on this one, but not in general, because the idea is that, if the buyer wants to use another agent or doesn't like you or whatever it may be, fine. You're not obligating them with some legal document binding them to use you. But on the property that you're taking your time out to research and print whatever, an MLS listing or look up comps, they should use you. It's wrong. In my opinion, of course, it's wrong for a buyer to use an agent to go see properties and then not write an offer through that agent. I think that's ethically wrong. So, and I also kind of use it as a screening mechanism, because if a buyer gets skittish about signing such an innocuous form, because the form's not really even legally binding, but it serves as documentation of work that you did. And if a buyer gets skittish about that, if they're hesitant, that right there is kind of a sign that they may have an ulterior motive. And so, I mean, I've left people at the door because they won't sign it. But everyone has I mean, there's no right way to show homes. There are just different methods and part of it also has to take into consideration the sort of buyers that you work with, the leads that you get, how credible, how much of a relationship they are. I mean, a lot of buyer leads I worked with were just ice cold. I mean, these were people calling the office, gimme. I want to see a showing now. I saw a sign. When can you meet me? Get over here. It wasn't really a lot of relationship development before we met in person. So I had to protect myself. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, a lot, but I'm just listening, absorbing, and just being receptive. And I think what I'm trying to do is think, how can I apply your thinking? And this what makes you, I think if I was this whole time, sorry, I was just thinking this what makes him a great broker is because you're always, from day one, sounds like you've been all about protecting yourself, protecting your interests. So I get where you're coming from. I was thinking, how can I apply that to my mindset of 5 minutes ago, what I was saying, the mindset of, got to build rapport. And I think maybe I am missing something. Maybe it's all about how you pitch it, perhaps. So maybe I would show, because I do get a lot of cold, fairly cold leads. Let's put it that way. They call my office line and I pick up, I try to build phone rapport, and then I meet them for showing. So I'm thinking perhaps maybe the first showing, I won't bring that up, but I will just focus on relationship. And then on the second showing and ongoing, I'll start bringing that paper with me all the time. And maybe even through DocuSign, just to make it like less, as least
Confrontational, right? Less
yeah,
confrontational to shove a document or a clipboard in someone's face and say, here, sign this. That's a very high pressure tactic. I agree. It is high pressure. And that's just, I've kind of had a little bit more of a high pressure approach on things in the past. But, and for the people that have been in the business for, years and years, or the people, I shouldn't even say years and years, the people that have gotten burned a few times, it definitely makes you a little bit more callous or a little less impatient, to buyers that are kind of just lukewarm or wishy-washy, because you just realize, I mean, after you've spent so much time, I mean, there's some heartbreaking stories I've heard from agents where they've just got epically burned. And in buyers, it's not like they're malicious. It's not like they're plotting and scheming on how to drain you from all of your value and then, discard you in the trash afterwards. Buyers are just self-interested humans. You know what I mean? They want a home. They don't necessarily care how they get it. They want the most competent person to help them get that home. And if you are, and I mean, obviously in your case, you deliver. I mean, you're a very competent person. You're on the ball. I get tons of positive feedback in terms of just how you manage your clients. So I know that you're all over it. And I think probably a lot of clients automatically default to believing you're the most credible, person to get them into the property. But still, I mean, here's one other thing to consider. So sitting in the broker chair, it's kind of like being an ambulance driver, because, when you first get your license, or when you're young, you drive a lot, that there's a potential for an accident, that there's risk in not wearing your seatbelt or riding along with your friend that drives kind of crazy. But it may not scare you enough to like just do something like, demand someone pull over, let you out, or to never ride in a car with someone. Well, I'm kind of an ambulance driver in my chair as the broker, because most deals go just fine. But when they don't, I hear about it. And I don't just hear about it, I'm spending hours of my day or weeks, I mean, or maybe even over a year dealing with a legal issue, sorting out the mess, undoing the knots. And so when you just see patterns of uh, issues that arise and things go wrong again and again and again, you just, you kind of fixate on that, and then you become very compliance and safety oriented. So as I was saying on the last podcast episode, agents, they'll tell me, oh, my last broker didn't require me to do this, or, hey, I didn't have to do that before. And I think, well, I mean, it's like, these aren't rules I make up to be some control freak. I do the minimum. I mean, I put the minimum in place. We've had in-person audits from the DRE each year, and I put the minimum in place, just like I always say to them, look, okay, maybe you drove without a seatbelt. Maybe you sped around and never wore a seatbelt. And then I tell you, you need to wear a seatbelt now. And the agent might say, well, I didn't have to wear one before. And I'll say, well, you got lucky. I mean, you drove around without a seatbelt. You never got in an accident. And you were fine. But now you're checking in with me, and I'm telling you, hey, if you want to be safe when you drive, wear a seatbelt. Anyway, I'm going on this long tangent, but of course, I'm just saying, take my, the reason why I love having you on the podcast and just talking to you in general is because you offer a fresh look. I feel like you're as deep in the trenches as anyone can be. You have a fresh look on things. And my look now is someone that has been kind of more, I've been behind a desk, for a length of time that is changing my perspective. I've become more of a compliance officer than an agent, than a field operative. So that's my perspective. And that's why I welcome yours, because my way may be overly cautious. Everything should be taken into consideration.
Yeah. No. That makes sense. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do. And you're supposed to protect the agent. You're supposed to protect us, and you're doing a great job. Always. That's one of my most favorite things, is that if there's ever a legal issue or a problem, or I feel unsafe, I'll use that word. If I feel like the seatbelt's about to unbuckle, I know I can call Hunter to fix that situation. But definitely, as boots on ground agents, I mean, there's a lot of gray area, weird, unsafe requests, because real estate agents, we it costs us $300 to get our license, and off you go. So we just have to walk cautiously.
Yeah, right. There's actually another form that's even even a little bit more intense than the property showing agreement. This is because, okay, so here's another scenario. And this is in part because do you get these text messages and emails from investors all the time? Do you know of any good properties?
Yep.
Okay. Super annoying. I don't know. I mean, basically 90% of the phone calls I'm getting or text messages I get now, I think on my cell phone, are from random flippers. I don't know if it's because I've had the same cell phone number for ages or what it is, but yeah. So what they do is they ask agents to write tons of offers, and agents will write offers. And what we've done is created a representation agreement that's just a little rider. It's an addendum that you can add on to an offer. And I call it a representation addendum that basically just says that the buyer understands that the agent's allocating time and resources to write up an offer, and that the buyer is in fact understands that the agent writing the offer is a representative, and that they could be subject to a penalty if they go around. We don't use the word penalty because that'll freak people out, but basically that if the buyer purchases that property within 90 days, or you can modify the number of days from the date that you wrote the offer, you as the agent wrote the offer, then that buyer owes the compensation equal to whatever the listing broker is offering. And that's basically just to protect buyers agents that are writing offers. Because here's another scenario that comes up. Again, this is my world of paranoia and just seeing all the fallout. But agents will write an offer, it won't come to terms, and then that buyer will go back 2 weeks later and try to strike a deal with the listing agent and say, look, you can double end it, but I want a deal, or I want you to credit all the, or a big portion of the commission. You get the idea. So this I probably wouldn't use as much. The property showing agreement, I live and die by that thing. I love that form. I use it all the time, or I used to use it all the time. This form, the representation addendum, I'd say it's something you need to feel out. If you feel like you have a buyer that's kind of sketchy and could, fly the coop, as they say, and go around you, add that as an addendum. You already have him sign like a zillion pages with an RPA now.
Yeah. Investors do that a lot. I gotta say, didn't happen with me because I typically don't work with people like that. I can get that, the spidey senses. I can just kind of tell, but I like that, using that with someone that buys a lot of properties and they just want you to write a ton of offers. It's smart. And I also like the idea of just like putting it in there with the offer, kind of like part of the DocuSign. So less confrontational, right, in my opinion. I like that.
Yeah. The documents are so long now. You're bundling so many forms. And each year they add another thing on. Now we have a whole library of coronavirus forms, as if there wasn't enough. Those forms, yeah. By the way, none of those coronavirus forms are required by Balboa. Intentionally, they're not required because they're not legally required. And if they're not legally required, then I believe that that my agents have enough common sense to know when to use it or if there's a need to use it. But those forms and they've grown since they were first made. They started out, I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, all right. And then they come out with a new version that's like twice as long. And I'm just thinking like, okay, there's something to be said about keeping things simple and in easy, plain English to, easy to understand terms.
No, 100%. I remember it was 2 pages. It made it hard on us. I've been, there's like 10, sometimes you have 5 houses, 6 houses to show per day. And you're supposed to, yeah.
Yeah, I've gotten that question. You can list multiple addresses at the top, but the problem is that listing agents start placing weird terms. Like they want it dated the same day of the showing, or they want just their property to be listed. Because I was at first, I got that question a few times. I was telling agents, well, if all the addresses don't fit, then just do an addendum. Just put on the very top in terms of the property, refer to an addendum and just modify that sheet whenever you need to. Whatever workaround you can do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I had an agent ask me to sign separately and then that from the buyer, sign separately, send me 2 separate COVID forms, the 14 pagers, you sign one and your buyer sign one. Why? Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And it's interesting to watch 2 different agents at different companies, how they adopt it. And some people are like, oh, whatever. And then other agents are like, don't even come at me without that form. Okay. It's a non-starter if you don't have every COVID form, ready.
Yeah.
And that's actually been kind of it's been interesting to watch too, the outlook that agents have on, during the whole pandemic, because talking to so many people, I'm on the phone kind of all day, every day. And it's interesting because the reaction was just, there wasn't like a general reaction from agents. It was kind of like, there were agents who were like, yeah, I heard about it. Anyways, off to a listing appointment, doesn't slow them down a beat. And there are other agents that decided to just shelter in, and they're like, I'm taking a break from real estate for now, which is understandable. I mean, again, it's personal preference, but there was, it just shows you how independent. I mean, one thing just in general, agents are independent, business-minded people. I mean, they are definitely self-employed, independent, outside the box thinkers, and especially at Balboa, because they've come here because we have low overhead. They want support, but they know what they need to do, and they're going to do it. And it's kind of like, just help me when I need you, but get out of my way. And so we have very independent thinkers in the
That's true.
company.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, unless there's anything else you want to discuss, I think we can wrap it up here then.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think we wrapped it up for now, but I'm sure we'll have a lot more to talk about in the next
Oh yeah,
episodes.
we always do. We always do. Thanks so much, Alex. Appreciate it.
Thank you.